While walking down the street today, I saw a bumper sticker that said, "Buy someone you love a Coke. Buy someone you love a Coca-Cola." Obviously the sticker was made by a company and they're trying to sell a product, right? But the first thought I had when I saw this was, why would you ever do that? Like, why would you ever buy someone you love a Coca-Cola? Why would you ever buy someone you love food that is well known to be harmful to them, right? Some people simply don't know what they don't know. Some people simply don't know how harmful certain things are. And they're very easily swayed by propaganda. Of all the things you could buy someone you love, right? You would buy them a Coca-Cola, which is filled with artificial sugars, artificial colors. God knows, it probably has some nanobot technology in there. It makes you think, right? Like how so many things in our society are only good when you compare them to something else. Coca-Cola is really only good if you compare it to Pepsi, right? Because God knows it's not, buy someone you love a Coca-Cola or a diamond ring. Which would you rather, right? Buy someone you love an unhealthy sugary beverage or some natural green smoothie juice, which is gonna flush them and antioxidants, right? It's like, obviously, whenever you hear any advertisement for any soft drink company, fast food company, alcohol, it's always in comparison to another one, right? It's buy your loved one a Coke instead of a Pepsi. Take your date to McDonald's instead of Burger King. You know what I mean? Buy a Budweiser instead of a Coors Light. When you look at these things on their own, most of them are so wrought with negative, disgusting ingredients that you would never consume these products just on their own, right? It's always in light of something else. Is Coca-Cola better than nothing? Yeah, it actually is. Fasting. Drinking water. Is eating McDonald's, is that better than eating nothing? Which is better for you, right? It's like, if you've been conditioned, you would think it's the McDonald's, right? If you're alone on an island and the only thing you have to drink is a Budweiser, do you drink that or do you drink nothing, right? So many of us don't understand enough to really be able to make these decisions in a way that actually is for your long-term betterment, right? Because the truth is, if you have the choice between drinking nothing and drinking beer, you're healthier to drink nothing, right? Because at least nothing, your body has learn about fasting, right? Learn about incremental fasting, learn about water fasts, juicing. When you give your body a break from some of these foods and some of these toxins, although you might be hungry, your body is actually using that opportunity to reset itself and to recalibrate all the different chemicals and minerals inside of your body. And so it's actually better a lot of the times to have nothing instead of something. And so often we allow ourselves to be manipulated and misled through the sort of either or, lesser of two evils kind of mindset, which is worse, one or the other. And it forces you to accept wickedness and evil and toxins and pollutants when otherwise you wouldn't, because really it's only acceptable compared to the other. It's not acceptable on its own, right? And we see this with marketing. We see this with all the different foods, with alcohol. We see it with politics as well. When I hear people trying to talk about how one political party is better than another, all I hear is Coke versus Pepsi, right? Because nobody in their right mind is putting their life in the hands of these politicians because they genuinely believe that they are better off doing so, right? The choice is, which of these two politicians should I put my life in the hands of? But are you better off? Are you better to capitulate to one politician versus another? Or are you better off to think of a third option? Should I go with the left? Should I go with the right? Or should I go with neither? Should I go with Team Blue? Should I go with Team Red? Or should I go with neither? Should I go with the progressives? Should I go with the conservatives? Or should I go with neither? Right? And that alternative option needs to be explored, right? Because it gives you sovereignty, it gives you independence, it gives you an option which is not one of two evils. You actually have a choice to pick an alternative that actually works for you. But the way that we are called in society, right? Are you a cow for milk or are you a cow for beef? Because wild cows, wild bison are unacceptable in society. Are you a dog which is owned by a person, or are you a dog which is in a kennel? Because in the West, we don't really have stray dogs. We don't have stray cats. That's more of a, global South, or maybe like it's mostly more impoverished third world type of nations that have stray animals, right? Because to be a domesticated animal is a sign of privilege, right? Like if you can afford to feed yourself and an animal, which really contributes nothing to your household, that's a sign of privilege, right? And so I feel like we've convinced ourselves, or we've allowed ourselves to be manipulated. We've allowed ourselves to be convinced that one of the two options we're given is being able to choose between one of these two things is a sign of privilege. Being able to choose, being able to buy a Pepsi is a privilege. Being able to buy a Coca-Cola is a privilege. But is that the best option for you, right? Is one of these two things the best choice for you? Or are you better off using your imagination, using your mind, using your creative faculties, leaning into your community, listening to what your intuition is telling you, and finding an alternative option, right? So many people, as much as they complain about the state of the world, they find solace, they find a safe place in the duality. Because when your own identity is polluted or convoluted or unclear, it becomes so much easier to identify with somebody else, right? Because these brands, for example, Coca-Cola is a whole brand. It's a whole identity. It's like you're not just drinking a Coca-Cola. You are a part of the Coca-Cola ecosystem, right? You are, they have that polar bear that's is like Santa Claus, and he like skates around and does. That's your boy. You know what I'm saying? It's like they have all these corporate sponsorships that go along with that brand. It's never on its own, right? All of these brands, there's something else that they have going for them that you can identify with that has nothing to do with the product, but it stirs an emotional response inside of you that has nothing to do with the product, but it's a part of the brand, right? We see this especially in government, how there's certain political parties that are associated with, you know what I mean? They are associated with liberation. What does that mean? Certain parties are associated with common sense. What does that mean? They're associated with preventing a climate disaster. What does that mean? Right? And they use these ideas to stimulate an emotional response in the people. And the people take that stimulation, they take that emotion, and then they go make a decision. They go commit themselves. They go put an X on a ballot based on the emotions that were elicited within them, not with the product itself, right? Not with the people. Buy someone you love a Coca-Cola. You know what I'm saying? Why would you do that, right? Oh, well, because, the emotion of loved ones, the emotion of caring for people that are important to you, this corporation has tapped into that feeling. And so now you're going to buy the product because of the feeling, not because of the product, right? I have never in my life seen somebody mix Coca-Cola and Pepsi, right? Because that would just completely end the feud, would it not? Because God knows they taste pretty similar. They taste similar enough where if you mix them together, you wouldn't even know the difference, right? Remember they had those taste tests back in like the 90s and the 2000s. They would have a Coca-Cola and a Pepsi, and they would have a blindfold, and you had to pick which one tasted better, right? And it's funny because they always edited it to make you think that it was like one or the other, when it was like people can't tell the difference between the two, right? I don't know who is crazy enough to think that one of these drinks is good for them and one is and one is bad. I don't know who is crazy enough to think that Coca-Cola is going to ruin your body, but Pepsi is going to save it, or Pepsi is going to fix the world of a disaster, but Coca-Cola is really, they're the enemy, right? Who is so stupid to really believe that these two brands are, one of them is good and one of them is evil? Who really believes this, right? So much of it is your lack of identity. Who are you? Because most people, for example, are a combination of introvert and extrovert. No one is entirely one or entirely the other, right? Everyone is a mix. Everyone is like 90, and like everyone is like 80-20, 70-30. And we know this deep down, but we allow ourselves because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust our identities. We haven't done the work to investigate our true selves, to know where we fall on the spectrum with some of these ideas. And because of that, because we're so busy that we don't have time for self-awareness, we allow ourselves to be pulled in one direction or the other based on what everyone else is doing, right? Based on these themes that have nothing to do with the actual thing, but elicit emotion into us, right? This idea on one side of government of, trying to fix the world. I think you have on the other side, the world is fine as it is, leave it alone. Let's stop hurting the planet. Let's stop injecting ideas where they don't belong, right? Who's right and who's wrong? You have to know yourself to know which path is right for you. And you have to be brave enough to walk that path regardless of who else is walking it with you, right? Because some of the most worthwhile places to go, you're going to go by yourself. Sorry. You know what I mean? Even if you go on some family trip, have you ever seen National Lampoon's European Vacation? The most important part of the trip for all of them was when they were by themselves and they had their day to wander around and see it for themselves, right? That's life. That's life. This idea that you need to be a part of something bigger than yourself do you? Because the biggest thing that you could be a part of is the universe. The biggest thing that you could ever be a part of is God, right? And you don't need another person to be a part of that. You need to go within, right? But we are misled because honestly, in order to align yourself with another person, you have to leave some part of yourself at the door. And it's really just a matter of like, how important is that part of you, right? Every relationship, there's a part of you that you connect, and there's a part of you that you forget about, so that can be a working relationship, right? Because God knows I can't bring every part of myself to every relationship I'm in. I would alienate people, right? And so, can you bring all of yourself or not? Coke versus Pepsi, right? Both are bad for you. Both are filled with toxins, leads, corrupt, child labor, you name it. Both of them do it. But the alternative is you being separate from the duality. It's this lie that these things are separate from each other, right? Because we know that with corporations, when you go high enough up the ladder, there's always a company that controls both of them, right? There's like investment funds that are invested in both companies. There are, maybe companies that, who makes the cans, right? You think that there's two different aluminum can companies that only sell to each? It's probably the same one, right? You look at the stores that sell, every store I've been to sells Coke and Pepsi. You know what I mean? It's like the sugar that they use. You know what I mean? It's one sugar company that sells to both. But they got you thinking that these are two different corporations, right? So that the choice becomes, should I buy a Coke or should I buy a Pepsi? Instead of should I buy one or nothing? And as the government moves in this direction as well, it's so important for people to realize that they don't have to choose one of the two evils. You don't have to choose Coke or Pepsi. You just have to stand on your square and make the best decision for you, which, if you're paying attention, is neither, right? But both offer you something emotional that you're gonna have to find somewhere else, right? The bumper sticker I saw, buy someone you love a Coca-Cola. You're gonna have to buy someone you love something else. You're gonna have to ask yourself, what is love? You're gonna have to ask yourself, who do I love? Right? And those are hard questions, right? Because the investigation, how do you show your love? These things are much more complicated, right? And these institutions, they are so good through their mastery of marketing, of being deceitful, and they lead with the good stuff and they hide the bad stuff. Can you live without a progressive politician telling you what to do? Progressive in air quotes. Can you live without a conservative politician telling you what to do and how to live and what's right and what's wrong, right? Is your compass strong enough to point north no matter how strong the winds are? Or are the winds of change great enough to push you off course, right? Because these politicians will tell you they're going north when really they're going west. And if you don't know the difference, if you don't have your own compass, you'll go with them and you'll think, hey, what's the big deal, right? It's becoming so obvious that both Coca-Cola and Pepsi are killing people. Diabetes, hypertension, blood pressure. Why would you ever reduce your choices to just those two? It's obvious that one side of the government is leading us into a war with every fucking country in the world, and the other side of the government is leading the country to a war within itself, right? So are you strong enough to chart your own path? Are you strong enough not to be pulled in the currents of Coke or Pepsi? Are you strong enough to look your friends in the eyes while they're drinking a Coke? Remember when you used to drink Coke? Remember when you used to drink a Pepsi? Are you strong enough to look in the eyes of your friends, your family, your loved ones and say, not me. I'm going to drink this glass of water. I'm going to go, you know what I mean? I'm going to drink some tea. I'm going to drink nothing. Oh, I'm weird? Oh, aren't you going to be thirsty? Well, it's better than this alternative. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not thirsty. I'm just not drinking Coke or Pepsi, right? I'm not lawless. I'm not an orphan. I'm not an anarchist. I'm just not putting my support behind a liberal or a progressive political figure. I'm going to take the extra step to find the path of sovereignty. What do these politicians even do for you? What do they do for you? What do you need from them? So often when I talk to people, they don't even know what they want. They don't even know what they need from these people, right? They don't even know why they're drinking a Coke or a Pepsi. It's just in the pop machine. So fuck it. I gotta choose something. Choose you. Choose God. Choose nature. And I don't mean choose someone else who's going to choose those things for you, which is some of y'all are lazy. There's nothing. The two worst virtues you can have in life are being lazy and being a liar, right? It's like you're putting your faith in people who are going to do the work that you don't want to do, right? You're going to go cast your ballot for Team Pepsi because Team Pepsi promises to fix the planet. Why can't you fix the planet? Why can't you clean up the park in your neighborhood? Why can't you ride a bike? Why can't you garden? Right? Because you're lazy. And there are these people who are promising to do it for you. Doesn't that sound like a good deal? Coke or Pepsi, buy one, get one free. Doesn't that sound like a good deal? Uber eats a Pepsi to your bed while you're sleeping. That sounds like a good deal, doesn't it? It always sounds like a good deal, doesn't it?